Welcome to Sanctuary, bringing you conversation and stories at the intersection of life and faith. This edition of Sanctuary is produced in cooperation with the Council of Religious Leaders of Metropolitan Chicago.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Sanctuary. I'm Nissan Chafkin, Executive Director of the Council of Religious Leaders of Metropolitan Chicago. In the United States, you may be familiar with VISTA or AmeriCorps, where young adults devote a year or more of service to local communities. You may not be aware that many religious communities sponsor similar programs where people realize their faith commitments through community service. Today on Sanctuary, we will hear about a program here in the Archdiocese of Chicago called Amate House. Amate House fosters transformations, both for the young adult fellows and the communities in which they serve. These transformations take shape as Amate House fellows live out the tenets of service, community, faith, social justice, and stewardship. Fellows dedicate a year of their lives to serving alongside and learning from community leaders who are solving social justice issues in under-resourced communities in Chicago. Let's take a look now at how these young people live together and serve together.
I have a lot to give to the world, and so I think I wanted to find a way to do that. It's a commitment to a year of service, so we all get we get assigned a job at a service site, at a partner site with Amate. I work at Little Brothers in Chicago. The mission of Little Brothers is to relieve isolation and loneliness in older adults. If I'm visiting in their home, it's a pretty casual. Sometimes we'll watch TV, sometimes we'll just sit and talk. I taught an elder how to use her email. I remember distinctly the first time one of my elders told me, "I love you." The first time where I was like, oh my gosh, I really am making a huge difference. And I don't know, just those words felt so powerful in that moment, and that was really cool.
I work here at St. Clement. I am their coordinator of community outreach. It's a lot of researching with other organizations maybe in the neighborhood or in the greater Chicago area that do different kinds of direct service work, whether it be something simple like a food drive or sending volunteers to help sort their clothing pantry or things like that. It's recognizing these tenets of Catholic social teaching that our church is based in, that we all believe in, and really exploring the ways that we can live those out. Ultimately, there's such a gift in being able to receive love unconditionally, and that then demands a call to give it unconditionally.
Amate House, since 1984, has had over 900 fellows who have donated over 1.5 million service hours to the most under-resourced communities in Chicago. The mission of Amate House is to develop young adult leaders into social justice advocates who serve their communities while they grow in faith.
What's it like living at Amate? It's a blast. I mean, I just think of our house, and it's so beautiful having so many people in a house.
So that means, keeping our house clean, cooking dinners together, assigning chores, all of that.
Okay, dishes, horrible. I hate doing dishes. So having people who are like, don't make me cook, let me do dishes. I'm like, yes, this is beautiful. This is so great.
We also like to do movie nights. We do a lot of community nights where we sit on the couch and I'll pick a movie or pick a TV show that we like to watch together, and that's another great way that we get to spend time together.
I think it's in those moments where we start the conversation talking about this random obscure TV show we might have watched when we were kids, and then it morphs into and this is why I chose Amate, 3 hours later.
I think I've made friendships that are going to last a lifetime.
They're amazing. They're amazing young people.
With the community living and the sharing of life, the good, the bad, the ugly, you know, all of it. These people are a part of what makes me who I am and what makes me why I am.
I think that there are a lot of skills that can be learned from living in community. I'm very happy with where I'm at. Yeah, I am very happy. I don't think I'd change a thing.
To learn more about this distinguished program, I'm pleased to have as my guest today Mr. Kevin O'Gorman, who is a fellow at Amate House and is currently Assistant Archivist at the Dominicans province of St. Albert the Great. Kevin, welcome to Sanctuary.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Glad you're here. Now, tell us about your journey. Are you a Chicago guy?
Yeah, so I grew up in Bourbonnais, Illinois, just south of Chicago. It's where the Bears used to have training practice.
Yes, indeed.
No more, unfortunately, but but you know, it's pretty close to the city, as well as my sister went to Loyola University, so it's not too far. I was pretty familiar with the city.
That's good. That's great. And that's actually outside of the Archdiocese of Chicago, right?
Yeah, in the Diocese of Joliet.
Okay, so this is going to be a two-part phase. I'm just trying to figure out, did you finish college and then you started with Amate? What's our timeline here?
Sure.
Walk us through your journey.
I went to college starting in 2019. I went to the University of Dayton, where I got my degree in history and theology, and I graduated, I guess it would have been spring of 2023. And at that time, I then kind of transitioned into Amate House at the end of that summer. So.
Okay, so you had to put through all of that COVID year of sorting through things and so on, and you're able to come home. And then you came back here to Chicago. Mm-hmm. You're not from the Archdiocese. How'd you hear about Amate?
So in my time at university, it was really a time where I became deeper in my faith and really wanted to live that out more. And at my university, it was run by this religious order called the Marianist Brothers. Wonderful brothers, wonderful spirituality. And one of the things that they put a really deep emphasis on was living in community and living in intentional community. And I had the opportunity over a couple years there to live in intentional communities alongside other students, where we lived together, prayed together, and kind of just shared our lives in a deeper way than we otherwise normally would have. And that was really transformative to both my faith as well as the ways in which I interacted with other people. And I really wanted to, I guess, keep that proverbial ball rolling, to really grow deeper with others, to have those really deep conversations and experiences, as well as kind of see how that transitioned out of a pretty college bubble kind of experience, right, into like a real world where I'm working a real job and dealing with real social issues. And where that really intersected with my faith was that call to service, where this love and joy that I experienced with my community, I wanted to bring that out into the world around me in any way I could. And thankfully at the university, they really encouraged us to act out and find those areas of service. And there was a really wonderful campus minister named Corinne, and she had done Amate in, I think it was 2018 or 2019, so a little bit before me. And she really recommended it and really pushed me to go deeper in that and to search it out. And so I discerned with a couple different service year programs, and Amate, I think, really combined the things I was looking for, which was a faithful community, one that was really rooted in the experience together, as well as one that was in Chicago. I really kind of wanted to be a little bit closer to my family, as well as I've always enjoyed the city of Chicago. I really enjoyed it's very down to earth and the sort of like grittiness to it, and I really saw a real opportunity for me to serve and to grow.
Oh, exciting. So what was the application like? How did you do you just kind of, is there a secret code you knock on the door? How does this work? How did it go?
It was it's both like long and short, if that makes sense. So it's really more of like a discernment process than like a application like you would for a job. So Amate, what they do, and what a lot of other similar communities and service year programs do, is that usually you'll make an appointment online for like a Zoom call or a phone call with whoever's a recruiter that year. And then you discuss with them, you kind of talk about what you're thinking, about what they can offer. And then from there, usually they'll send you like a longer questionnaire, which is about how do you live in community, what kind of challenges have you faced with roommates or with the people around you, why do you want to do this in the first place, as well as kind of what your passions are and like what can you really bring to a community. And after that, Amate had, at the time, had another round of interviews after that, where we talked with them further, kind of discerned a little bit more. It's really, for them especially, it was a mutual process. Amate is one of the larger service year communities, where most service years are maybe like 4-ish people, something like that. Amate goes all the way up to 12. So that's a much larger community, and there's a lot more kind of dynamics to that. So they want to make sure the people that are joining can really help elevate that community. And so, and it wasn't it wasn't so much like like we're super picky type of deal. They were just trying to make sure that the people that were entering and they knew what they were getting into, and the kind of communities that they are entering really could flourish in that way. So after that, Amate then connects you with the service sites. So Amate has several dozen service sites.
At this point, you've been
So,
accepted, right?
I skipped a couple steps.
That's
there.
okay,
Yeah.
but they then, so you go through this interview process, and because you're not just being brought in for yourself, but to be part of this cohort that's going to, and as I understand it, at Amate House, you all live together in the same building, yeah?
Yeah, so Amate House has a property in McKinley Park in Chicago, just a little bit west of Sox Park, down there on the south side.
Okay.
And it's an old convent, so it comes with all the quirks, all the, shaky windows and old furniture and things like that. Cupboards filled with junk and things, but it's well loved, and it really has a real presence to it. And so we each had our own little sort of like dorm rooms, and then we had a communal bathroom as well, so sort of like camp stalls, showers, and things like that. But then we would have dinner together every night as well, too.
So you're in charge of the cooking, too?
So we would take shifts with that. We actually had kind of like a sign-up sheet each week. So we would, depending on our personal schedules and what kind of nights work best for us, we would sign up alongside one other person to cook, and then two of us would sign up to cook, and 2 of us would sign up to clean. And usually the way it worked is that we would do it every 2 to 3 times a week. So it wasn't too much, but it was enough where we were able to give back to each other in the community and have the kind of meals that we were, wanted to have.
So is that part of your interview process? Will cooks a mean marinara sauce kind of things?
I will say, some of us were better cooks than others, but
others,
it was
right?
it was all about the process, right?
Fair.
All about growing with that.
Fair enough. And you mentioned interest areas. What was one of your interest areas, or what are your interest areas when you were applying into Amate House?
Sure. So one of my, a couple of them were really community development and gun violence. Those are really some of the social justice areas that I was most personally interested in. And Amate had some wonderful service sites that were able to build upon that. I actually worked here at the Archdiocese of Chicago with the Office of Human Dignity and Solidarity, which is their social justice kind of arm of the church here. And so I worked in all ministries across the board with that, often in parishes in South Shore and South Chicago, all the way up to the prison ministry, or the jail ministry, Colby House. And so that was a really wonderful opportunity to live that out, to see the experiences, and to really see what the kind of social justice, what the kind of challenges that people faced were on like a daily basis.
And are these the placements that you had, were they specifically Catholic organizations, or were they, how did
Most of them were related, either directly or indirectly, to the Archdiocese, but not all of them were explicitly faith-based organizations. Like, for example, one of the other fellows worked at a place called Sarah's Inn, which was a domestic violence shelter and educational place. So she would go into schools, and mostly public schools, and talk about domestic violence and how students can address that and identify that in their lives. But on the other hand, there's people like me who worked for the Archdiocese. We had another one who worked at a Catholic school, another person who worked for Catholic Charities. So it really ranges across the board for, if your interests are, kind of ministerial or nonprofit in that sense, or more broader, maybe even secular nonprofit.
So in other service programs, like with AmeriCorps, it's generally you have 4 days in a community placement with a specific host organization, and then you have sort of a team day for one of those. Was that similar model for Amate, or did you have save your teamwork for the weekends?
So at Amate, we did our stuff kind of in the afternoon a lot of the time. So we'd work 5 days a week, a normal 40-hour week, which I thought was actually really helpful in several of my...
What'd you think of that?
It's definitely a transition, right?
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways, I think Amate really takes time to prepare you for that kind of work, as well as prepare you for the background and to grow through it.
So tell me about that preparatory process. What do they do to get you ready so that when you're out there, your host organization can take advantage of your skills and not spend all their time training you?
Totally. Amate really, I think, succeeds in giving us a stable community of people who know what you're going through and are very interested in helping you alongside that. So, when you work in very emotionally intensive fields, whether that's a jail ministry, a social service, or like a social worker agency, or even in schools, those are very taxing, especially when you're approaching it from a social justice lens. And being able to come back to a place where everybody's interested to help and grow within that, as well as we had community nights where we would have speakers come in and talk about different opportunities that we could grow.
Great. Well, as we go to a break, and we'll be right back here, the voices of those who have served through Amate House years ago, how that experience changed their lives.
That 1 year, especially that year immediately out of undergrad, for me, it set the tone for my whole professional life, for my whole young adult life.
Just think it's such a good time after undergrad to take a step back, to pray, to reflect, to think about what are the bigger questions in life that you should be asking and pursuing. And Amate House provides the structure to help you do that.
I think without Amate House, I wouldn't have had like the tangible experience and skills to use now. Because I think in undergrad I wasn't able to really, other people accompanied me and listened to me, and then when I was able to go to Amate House, I was able to practice those skills a little bit more. I think Amate House does a really good job of even accompanying their own community members in terms of placing them in a location and a site that works for them. Amate House equals community. Of course, it's putting love into action within Amate House, but I would say even more so, it's the one word or phrase would be community.
My one word is love, but that is what Amate House means. It's the Latin imperative to love, go, love already. To take this love that I know God has given me and ask myself, how am I being called to share that with the world? That's the neat thing about being, part of a program that does have this lineage and this history.
There's a network of people who have done it, who you could run into anywhere in the country, I think.
When I work with young people, I have zero hesitation to tell them to pursue a year of volunteering or being a fellow at Amate or other programs.
When else would I have the opportunity to do this? I mean, it is such a transformative experience, and I don't know anyone who has regretted spending a year in Amate House or some other program like this.
Metropolitan Chicago is one of the most religiously diverse areas in the world, and for more than a half-century, Sanctuary has reported and reflected on our faith-filled community. Sanctuary tells stories of faith from both inside our houses of worship to the streets and neighborhoods where faith is acted out every day with acts of kindness and concern. From food pantries to peace initiatives, from worship services to servicing the poor, Sanctuary has a proud history of reporting on the goodness that flows from our faith traditions. Watch Sanctuary every Sunday at 12 noon.
Welcome back to Sanctuary. I'm Nissan Chafkin, and I'm speaking today with Mr. Kevin O'Gorman about the Amate House service program here in Chicago. And Kevin, you were telling us about your areas of interest and how they got you prepared, and the challenges of actually having a 40-hour work week and all that's involved, and the immense emotional challenges sometimes that occur when you're working in social justice work. How did you find support for each other individually and collectively as a cohort? How did that work?
So as I said a little bit before the break, Amate House structures their community formation and preparation events, usually in the afternoons. So we have two to three kind of big ones each week. Every on a weekly basis. Every other Tuesday, we would have a spirituality night where one of us would lead, an hour and a half session where we would talk about our spirituality, talk about the things.
So to be clear, you've done a full day's work,
yes,
and then you do this in the evening for fun.
Usually some long days, but you're there to support each other, there to grow. Sometimes we would cut dinner a little short to make the time in, but so that would be about an hour and a half. Usually it would rotate between us, and we'd really explore the different parts that our spirituality were coming from, the interests that we had. So for example, one of us led a Stations of the Cross during Lent, another one was about Marian prayer, another one was about art prayer. It really kind of depends where the person was at in their spirituality and where they had seen that in their work week. As well, every Wednesday, like I said earlier, we had a community night where we would usually invite a speaker or somebody from the community would actually prepare something for us to as a group and to reflect on. A lot of times it was about Catholic social teaching, so kind of going over some of the different principles about solidarity, subsidiarity, some big words there, but all about how those tenets and how those principles go into our work and inform our work with other people. What does it really mean to grow alongside others, to seek the most local option? And then other times we would have more fun events, like when we had a self-defense instructor come in and we were hitting all the padded dummies and kind of enjoying that time together. So it goes across the spectrum, but
okay.
Yeah.
Was there ever bowling night or something like a little more low stress?
Yeah. There were several nights where it was, we had, for example, one where we were preparing bags of food to drop off at a local food shelter, so making peanut butter sandwiches and laughing and making jokes for an hour or 2 hours there. So it like I said, it varies there. But.
So you're there working 5 days a week,
Yes.
and take us through the weekend. What happens on the weekend? Do you have free time? Are you personal time? Or are you just always in community? How does that flow?
So our weekends are more or less up to ourselves. So we would eat dinner every Sunday through Thursday. So you don't normally, some young people in their 20s, they want to enjoy their Fridays and Saturdays together.
Sure.
So we would normally do kind of usually every weekend there would be some sort of group trip to a museum or a park or something like that. That was just something that was put on by my community. That's not something that Amate did all the time, but especially my year, me and another person were the only people from Chicago. So the other people were really antsy to explore the city, to find the different parts. So that was a thing we did as a community a lot, was exploring together.
Where was everybody from?
We had quite a few people from Boston. So 3 of the 6 of us were went to Boston College. So there was a lot of Boston talk and things about the Celtics, especially after they went on that run last year. So.
Yes, indeed. I bet they rubbed it in. But
very much.
But that's okay. They're entitled. That's good. So one of the things that we've heard about Amate House is that it has these organizing ideas of service. We've talked about community, social justice, faith and stewardship. What does stewardship mean for our viewers, and how does that fit into the Amate experience?
Yeah. So stewardship means taking care of the world around you and being good stewards of what you have. So in Amate, that means that we live on a limited budget. So every month we have a certain amount of money that can go to our groceries, to house upkeep, to clean supplies, all that stuff. And as a house, you talk about how do we budget that out? What do we spend our money on? What are we doing for our dinners? All these things. What are we doing for cleaning? And then for us, we also took it to the environmental level as well. Several of us were involved in a local trash pickup group that would meet once or twice monthly to go around the local neighborhood, pick up trash, and then socialize afterwards. As well as we composted as well and went to a nearby place in back of the yards to dump out our compost at. So for us, stewardship really meant being good stewards with both financially, as well as financially understanding the people around us, so understanding that limited income, and being able to grow throughout that.
How did that go?
It was hard. It's difficult, especially our year we had 2 vegetarians, so that meant that our meals had to be planned pretty meticulously to understand and accommodate people. That there's a special grace in having those challenges, right? You're able to grow through that and able to experience it. It's difficult, but I think in those times you become more creative and more understanding with what you can do with limited money and what you can do with limited food. And I think especially in a city as beautiful and as beautiful as Chicago, where you can go so many places for free and enjoy public spaces and enjoy so many like festivals and things like that. You become more reliant on the local community and understand the beauty in which it grows in.
Terrific. So was there anything that surprised you about your service?
I think the thing that surprised me most was how close you can really become with the people around you. When you spend so much time, both in the dinners, but also the hours after dinner, laughing, telling jokes, about, talking about the day, talking about what you've gone through, as well as with the countless hours we spent in faith nights and community nights every week, you really deeply understand where these people are coming from, and what put them in this position, why do they want to get back, and where are they looking to go forward. And I think especially, on another level with my work, being just so open about, I'm here to serve, I'm here to be open, I'm here to be available for you at my service sites was a real transformative experience to connect with people on those base levels. It wasn't some sort of like voyeuristic thing where I was going to a place to play poor or anything like that. I took the same buses that these guys did. I took the same trains around. I shopped at the same stores, and I understood, and I lived in the same areas, and I understood the challenges that come with that. And I think that sort of, moments of encounter were very surprising.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anything that you were expecting that didn't happen, or? No is fine.
Yeah. I think with a year like this, so many different things happen. I think I was expecting it to be a lot harder to develop a community with people. Like I said, I lived in a community in college, and it has its fits, it has its starts. There's arguments over the dishes and things like that.
Right.
But I had known those people before I moved into a house with them, right? Whereas with this one, I didn't know them at all. We had exchanged a couple texts before we moved in, but that was pretty sparse. And it was, I think, really, I expected there to be a lot more challenges, a lot more turmoil. Everyone has bad roommate stories. Now you have 5 of them, right? So I think that when you open up that community, it's hard, but I think we all came in there with the right attitude, with a desire to serve and a desire to grow each other and grow our community. And that was a real special place.
That's exciting. So from a faith commitment perspective, what insights did you gain about your faith from this experience? What did you come out with knowing that you didn't know before?
I would say just how deep individual communities' faith can be. I think I spent a lot of time going to different parishes, especially on the south side, and I had never really grown up in I didn't really have a particularly close relationship with my parish where I grew up in. Mm-hmm. And college parish and faith life is a little bit different. And so I think going to these communities and seeing how intentional and how special these places were to each of them was something that I think really informed my faith and informed the ways in which that I can grow community and I can grow my faith and see the people around me. I think also within community, people came from so many different spiritual places into the Amate community. People that were Catholic and had done all the Catholic stuff and everything, to people that weren't, and people that didn't really know where their faiths were going into that. And I think that openness and being able to share my faith and share where I'm coming from, as well as leaving the door open for them to test the waters and see where the Spirit and their desires are leading them, was a real eye-opening opportunity.
Oh, that's tremendous. Yeah. That's very exciting indeed. And it sounds like it left you in a better spot and richer for having the privilege of serving in those various communities and meeting people from those parishes. It's tremendous. I want to express our thanks today to Mr. Kevin O'Gorman, a fellow of the Amate House program here in Chicago. You can learn more about Amate House at the web address on your screens. Our thanks to you as well for tuning in to this episode of Sanctuary. Until next time, blessings, good health, and peace.